Humans have done some truly amazing things. And then, someone decided to grow the world's longest fingernails. 1. The world's longest fingernails. A lifetime of nope. Meet Sridhar Chilal from India, a man who spent 66 years growing his fingernails to a total length of 29 feet. That's right, each hand was basically a set of 5 horror movie plot lines curling in slow motion. He started in 1952 after a teacher scolded him for breaking a nail, proving that petty revenge can sometimes go way too far. Everyday life? Forget it. He couldn't sleep properly, drive, or even hug someone without risking a finger fracture. When he finally cut them off in 2018, the nails were so valuable they were displayed in Ripley's Believe It or Not museum. Imagine explaining that to your grandkids. No, sweetie, Grandpa didn't climb Everest or write a book, he just stopped clipping his nails for 6 decades. 2. The man who balanced a lawnmower on his chin. John Evans from the UK holds the record for balancing a 46-kilogram running lawnmower on his chin for 33 seconds. Because apparently the phrase "mow the lawn" just wasn't challenging enough. Evans, known for his love of stacking heavy objects on his head and face, also balanced cars, fridges, and even women sitting in chairs, all in the name of world records. His neck is basically made of steel and poor decisions. Somewhere between "I can balance a beer can" and "let's try a power tool," this man found his life's calling. The best part? He said it's all about relaxation and concentration. Most people meditate. He risks decapitation with a lawnmower. Different strokes, I guess. 3. The world's largest rubber band ball, a hobby gone out of control. What starts as office boredom sometimes ends up in global recognition. Case in point, Joel Wall from Florida, who spent 6 years building a rubber band ball weighing 9,032 pounds. It wasn't a project, it was a lifestyle. He spent every paycheck on rubber bands, and his neighbors watched in disbelief as a small pile turned into a suburban planet. By 2008, it became the largest in the world, earning him a Guinness record and probably some serious regret when he realized how many groceries he could have bought instead. Ripley's eventually bought it for display, which is basically the adult version of getting your macaroni art hung on the fridge, if your fridge costs $40,000 and requires a forklift. 4. The woman who held the record for the most plastic surgeries. Meet Cindy Jackson, the human embodiment of New Year, New Me. Over several decades, Cindy underwent more than 50 cosmetic procedures, from facelifts to liposuction to operations no one even knew existed. She didn't just chase beauty, she set a world record for it. Her goal wasn't fame, though. She claimed it was self-improvement, which is the polite British way of saying, "I turned my face into a full-time project." After her 14th procedure, doctors probably started sending her Christmas cards. The wildest part? She actually looked good, like a living Photoshop filter. Cindy's story raises a deep question about modern humanity. How far will we go to upgrade something that already works fine? The answer apparently is as far as anesthesia and a platinum credit card can take you. In the end, she proved that records aren't just for athletes. They're also for people willing to make their body a construction site. 5. The man who spent his life. Covered in bees, Ruan Liangming of China holds the record for being covered by 1.1 million bees at once, a total weight of 240 pounds of buzzing doom. He stood calmly as the insects swarmed his entire body, even his face, like he was auditioning to be the world's bravest honeycomb. How did he survive? Easy. He covered himself in pheromones and pure confidence. He described the experience as warm and heavy, which sounds suspiciously like the early stages of a panic attack. At one point, the bees stung him over 2,000 times, but he didn't even flinch. Most people run when they see one bee near a soda can. This man turned himself into an all-you-can-sting buffet for glory. When he finally broke the record, officials weighed him to confirm it. Imagine that conversation. "Congratulations, sir. You're officially 240 pounds of courage and poor decision-making." 6. The world's largest collection of traffic cones. David Morgan from the UK holds a record that no one else wanted, owning more than 500 traffic cones. Yes, those orange plastic triangles you swerve around in parking lots. His fascination began in childhood when he borrowed one from a construction site. Decades later, his home became a shrine to road safety, packed floor to ceiling with cones of every shape and era. He even claims to own 2/3 of all traffic cone types ever made. Somewhere between quirky collector and local legend, David turned into the world's most enthusiastic hazard symbol. When asked why, he simply said, "I find them calming." Sure, some people collect stamps or vintage records. He collects industrial warnings. His record reminds us that every obsession starts small, and before you know it, you're living inside what looks like a Department of Transportation warehouse. If aliens ever visit Earth, they'll think cones are our national treasure. 7. The longest time spent watching television. You might think binge-watching a Netflix show for 8 hours is impressive, but Kevin Keane from New York would laugh in your face. He once watched TV for 94 hours straight during an official Guinness attempt, powered only by coffee, granola bars, and the sheer determination to avoid eye contact with reality. His goal was simple: become the couch potato king. Over 4 sleepless days, he cycled through sitcoms, news, and infomercials until his brain probably started buffering. At hour 70, he began hallucinating that the characters were talking directly to him. And honestly, after that much TV, they probably were. When he finally stood up, he said the hardest part wasn't staying awake. It was realizing there's no prize for memorizing every commercial jingle from 2009. Guinness verified his record, and Kevin proved one universal truth: humans can survive without sleep, but not without reruns. 8. The world's largest sandwich, and the regret that followed everything's bigger in the USA, including lunch. In 2005, a team in Michigan created a sandwich weighing 5,440 pounds. That's 2.5 tons of meat, cheese, and bread, large enough to feed an army or one really dedicated teenager. The construction required cranes, forklifts, and a moral disregard for portion control. When finished, it was taller than most refrigerators and contained over 1,000 pounds of mayo alone. Basically, a cholesterol monolith. The crowd cheered, photos were taken, and then came the tragic question: so, who's eating this? Turns out, no one could. It spoiled within hours under the sun, attracting more flies than a picnic in purgatory. The record stood, but the sandwich didn't. The event became legendary, proof that human ambition has no limits, but refrigeration definitely does. 9. The man who pulled an airplane with his teeth. Because lifting weights is for amateurs, Kevin Fast, a Canadian priest and part-time physics experiment, decided to drag a full-size airplane across a runway using nothing but his jaw. He latched a rope to a 188-ton cargo plane, clenched down like a bulldog on espresso, and pulled it several meters to set a world record. Witnesses say the sound was like a vacuum cleaner made of agony. Kevin claimed it was all about faith and physics, which is exactly what people say right before something dislocates. The best part? He's also pulled fire trucks, houses, and even a 42-ton ship because apparently gym memberships are too mainstream. He later said his secret was mind over molars, proving that sometimes the difference between legend and dental disaster is just a very supportive orthodontist. Somewhere out there, a dentist is still shaking his head, whispering, "That's not what flossing is for." 10. The longest human domino chain. In 2013, 10,267 people in China decided to fall over, in the most organized way imaginable. They lined up in matching uniforms, shoulder to shoulder, like human-sized dominoes, and toppled one another in a wave that lasted nearly 15 minutes. The event looked like a slow-motion apocalypse choreographed by an overachieving kindergarten teacher. Guinness confirmed it as the longest human domino chain in history, proving that teamwork can achieve anything, even collective gravity. One participant said it felt like being part of history, though the medical team on standby probably described it as mild chaos with bruises. The irony? The first person to fall tripped too early, so the start of the chain had to be reset like a faulty software update. Still, it worked, and the final person stood up dazed but proud, knowing they'd participated in humanity's most pointless act of coordination since the Macarena. 11. The world's largest pizza. Because why not? Pizza Hut and a group of food engineers in Rome once decided that normal-sized pizza just didn't scream human excess loudly enough. The result? A pizza the size of an airplane hangar, 13,580 square feet of dough, sauce, and cheese, affectionately named Otavia. It required 6,000 kilos of flour, 4,000 kilos of cheese, and 90 chefs who probably never wanted to see pizza again. They baked it in sections using portable ovens, like culinary construction workers. When finished, it could feed over 30,000 people, or one very emotional college student. The best part? It was completely gluten-free, proving that even world records now cater to dietary trends. The event raised money for charity, which almost justifies inventing a meal visible from space. Somewhere in Italy, a grandmother surely whispered, "This is not what I meant when I said eat more." 12. The woman who collected 1,000 umbrellas. Nancy Hoffman from Ohio has one rule. If it opens and keeps rain off your head, she wants it. Over 40 years, she's collected more than 1,000 umbrellas in every size, color, and absurd design imaginable, from ones shaped like wine bottles to one featuring Elvis's face. Her house looks less like a home and more like a meteorological museum. She started her collection after losing her favorite umbrella in the 1970s, vowing to never feel that heartbreak again. Now, every room is draped in nylon canopies and questionable fashion choices. When asked how she stores them all, Nancy proudly says, "Everywhere." Her neighbors, however, suspect she could stop a small flood just by opening her front door. Guinness gave her the record for largest umbrella collection, proving that sometimes obsession can turn a rainy day hobby into a lifetime of bragging rights and zero closet space. 13. The man who lived with scorpions for 21 days. Some people go camping. Kanchana Ketkau of Thailand went terrifying. She set the record by living inside a glass room with 5,320 scorpions for 21 days, a sentence that sounds like the world's worst Airbnb listing. Her only protection? A bikini and nerves of steel. The scorpions crawled on her face, her hair, and occasionally into her food, basically turning her life into a non-stop horror film. She was stung multiple times but refused to quit. When she finally stepped out, she smiled for the cameras like she'd just finished a spa retreat. Her reason for doing it? To prove Thai women are strong. Mission accomplished, and possibly insane. She still holds the record, along with lifelong bragging rights and presumably recurring nightmares. Moral of the story: if someone tells you they're not afraid of commitment, ask if they've ever spent 3 weeks with venomous roommates. 14. The world's longest kiss, 58 hours of questionable romance. Ekachai and Laksana Tiranarat, a couple from Thailand, once kissed continuously for 58 hours, 35 minutes, and 58 seconds. That's right, nearly 2.5 days of pure lip-locked endurance. No breaks, no food, no bathroom trips. They were monitored by judges who made sure the kiss never stopped, even when they fainted from exhaustion. To stay hydrated, they drank through straws, like caffeinated lovebirds in a survival movie. By the end, they looked less romantic and more like two people stuck together by industrial glue. Their reward? A Guinness certificate, a cash prize, and probably permanent neck pain. The event was meant to celebrate Valentine's Day, but ended up resembling a hostage situation sponsored by Cupid. Still, they walked away smiling, mostly because their faces couldn't move anymore. 15. The woman who owned 6,000 Barbies. When people say, "follow your dreams," they rarely mean turn your living room into a plastic sorority. But that's exactly what Bettina Dorfman from Germany did. She's collected over 6,000 Barbie dolls, a pastel army worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Each doll is cataloged, dressed, and displayed like a tiny museum of impossible body standards. Bettina started collecting as a child and never stopped. She even runs a Barbie repair clinic, where broken dolls go to get emergency cosmetic surgery. Her husband reportedly has one rule: no dolls in the bedroom. Too late, buddy. They're watching anyway. Visitors describe her home as both impressive and mildly terrifying, like walking into a glittery surveillance state. Guinness crowned her Queen of Barbie Collectors, and she accepted proudly, proving that while most adults grow out of childhood obsessions, some just add shelving and call it history. 16. The man who ate an entire airplane. Michel Lotito from France, better known as Monsieur Mange Tout, literally Mr. Eat Everything, took the phrase iron stomach to a terrifyingly literal level. Over 2 years, he consumed an entire Cessna 150 airplane piece by piece. Wings, seat cushions, glass, bolts, everything except the flight attendants. He chopped the plane into tiny fragments, mixed them with mineral oil, and chased it all down with water like it was a casual salad. Doctors studied him and discovered he had a stomach lining twice as thick as average. Evolution's way of saying, fine, do what you want. By the time he finished, he'd eaten over 9 tons of metal in his career. including bicycles, shopping carts, and a chandelier. Michelle proved that with patience, determination, and zero taste buds, even air travel can be digestible. Somewhere out there, TSA is still wondering if he counted as checked baggage. 17. The world's longest time spent planking. Most of us can hold a plank for 30 seconds before questioning our life choices. George Hood, a 62-year-old former Marine, decided that wasn't enough suffering. He planked for 8 hours, 15 minutes, and 15 seconds. 8 hours of trembling muscles and existential dread. To stay focused, he blasted rock music and occasionally told himself motivational quotes out loud. By the end, his arms looked like rebar wrapped in regret. When he finally collapsed, paramedics probably wanted to give his abs a Medal of Honor. He said it was all about discipline, but let's be honest, this was masochism with good PR. Hood trained for 2,100 hours, which means he basically spent a year preparing to be motionless. The next time someone says they're working on their core, remember George, the man who turned a gym exercise into an endurance war crime. 18. The woman who held the record for the largest afro, Ava Dugas from Louisiana, didn't just grow an afro, she grew a national landmark. Her hair measured 5 feet 5 inches around, roughly the size of a beach umbrella that also happens to have personality. She spent over a decade nurturing it with oils, patience, and enough conditioner to fill a swimming pool. Strangers constantly tried to touch it, which she described as flattering but annoying, or as every curly-haired person calls it, Tuesday. Her giant halo of hair became a symbol of pride and patience, though daily life wasn't exactly easy. She couldn't drive with the windows down, and fitting through doorways was an Olympic event. Eva's afro now holds a Guinness record and a place in pop culture history, proof that hair isn't just a style, it's a lifestyle with its own gravitational pull. 19. The man who survived being struck by lightning. 7 times meet Roy Sullivan, a park ranger from Virginia and unofficial lightning magnet of Earth. Between 1942 and 1977, he was struck by lightning 7 separate times and survived every one of them. He got hit in his watchtower, his truck, his yard, and once inside a ranger station. His hair caught fire so often that he started carrying a bucket of water around, just in case God had bad aim again. Statistically, the odds of this happening are 1 in 1040, basically impossible. But Roy didn't just survive, he laughed about it. He became a legend, earning the nickname the Human Lightning Rod. Sadly, his park ranger hat still holds a burn mark from his final strike, now displayed in a museum. Roy proved one thing: if nature wants you gone and you're still here, you've officially beaten the tutorial level of existence. 20. The man who broke the record for the longest hiccup fit. Charles Osborne hiccuped for 68 years straight. Yes, you read that right, 68 years. It started in 1922 when he tried to lift a hog and somehow ruptured a nerve in his diaphragm. What followed was 430 million hiccups, give or take a few. Doctors tried hypnosis, carbon dioxide therapy, and even asked him to just relax, the medical equivalent of turning it off and back on again. Nothing worked. He learned to speak between hiccups, eat in tiny bites, and somehow live a semi-normal life. Then one day in 1990, after nearly 7 decades, the hiccups just stopped. No explanation, no miracle cure, just silence. Charles reportedly said, "I don't know what changed." Probably the universe finally got tired of its own joke. His endurance earned him a world record and humanity's eternal sympathy for surviving the longest case of unwanted percussion in history. 21. The woman who owned the largest collection of rubber ducks. Charlotte Lee from Washington turned bath time into a global phenomenon. Her home holds over 9,000 rubber ducks, each with its own theme: cowboy ducks, doctor ducks, glow-in-the-dark ducks, even a Darth Vader duck that quacks menacingly. It all started with a single gift in 1996 and spiraled into a full-blown aquatic empire. She travels worldwide hunting for unique ducks, displaying them in glass cases like priceless treasures. Her collection is so massive that her husband once joked he might move out to make room for the flock. But Charlotte insists every duck has a personality, which is adorable and slightly concerning. When Guinness came to verify the record, they had to count for 2 days straight. By the end, her house looked like Sesame Street crashed into a bathtub factory. She now holds the official title of Queen of Ducks, which sounds silly, until you realize she earned it one squeak at a time. 22. The man who spent 16 years digging a hole with a spoon. Some people collect stamps, others dig holes. Meet William Little from London, known locally as the Mole Man. What started as a small basement renovation in the 1960s turned into a 16-year obsession that produced a sprawling network of tunnels under his house. His tools? A few shovels and a spoon. Neighbors complained that their lawns were caving in, and one day a delivery truck sank into the street above his underground labyrinth. When city engineers finally investigated, they discovered over 50 feet of interconnected tunnels filled with junk, televisions, bicycles, and random furniture. William simply shrugged and said, "I like digging." The city eventually filled in his tunnels, costing thousands of dollars, but his legend remains. He never found treasure, oil, or even logic. But he did find immortality in the record books as the man who spent half his life proving that rock bottom is just another floor to dig through. 23. The woman who spent 12 years living with 200 cats. Linnea Latancio didn't just love cats, she became cats. Her California home turned into a feline metropolis when she began rescuing strays in the 1990s. Fast forward a decade, and she was sharing her house with over 200 cats. Every surface meowed, every couch cushion purred. She fed them 500 pounds of kibble per week and vacuumed like it was an Olympic sport. Eventually, her home transformed into the Cat House on the Kings, a full-blown sanctuary that now shelters over 1,000 cats at any given time. She jokes that she doesn't need an alarm clock because the chorus wakes me. While most people can barely handle one litter box, Linnea built an empire of fur and chaos. Her story proves that sometimes passion looks a lot like insanity, but in her case, it also saved thousands of lives. She's part saint, part cat herder, and entirely unforgettable. 24. The man who spent 40 years building a cathedral, alone. In Madrid, a retired monk named Justo Gallego decided to honor God in the most DIY way possible by building an entire cathedral by himself. No construction training, no blueprints, just faith, recycled bricks, and a lot of free time. For 40 years, he worked every single day, using discarded materials from nearby construction sites. Locals called it God's Lego Project. The result is a towering, surreal structure complete with domes, arches, and stained glass windows made from paint buckets. It's both magnificent and mildly terrifying, like if Michelangelo had discovered caffeine in YouTube tutorials. Engineers have inspected it and confirmed, yes, it's somehow standing. Tourists from around the world visit what's now known as La Catedral de Justo. He passed away before finishing it, but his one-man masterpiece remains a monument to divine stubbornness. Proof that you don't need an architect's degree when you have infinite faith and zero fear of falling masonry. Number 25. The world's longest hot dog and the collapse that followed. In 2011, a team of chefs in Paraguay set out to make history and indigestion by building the world's longest hot dog. The final product stretched over 203 meters. That's 2 football fields of processed meat. They used special baking equipment to create a single bun, poured 260 pounds of ketchup, and needed forklifts just to lift the sausage. Everything was perfect until someone bumped the table. Like a greasy domino effect, the hot dog folded in half and broke in the middle. The crowd gasped, the organizers panicked, and Guinness officials declared it disqualified. The chefs were devastated, but they still served the remains to over 1,000 spectators. It didn't earn the record, but it earned eternal fame as the most dramatic cookout in history. Moral of the story? You can chase greatness, but sometimes greatness collapses under its own condiments. 26. The man who balanced a running chainsaw on his chin. Because gravity clearly wasn't terrifying enough, Ashrita Furman decided to balance a running chainsaw on his chin for 12 minutes. He's not just a daredevil, he's the most prolific world record holder in history, with over 700 records to his name. He's juggled chainsaws, walked underwater for miles, and once pogo-sticked up the Great Wall of China. But the chainsaw trick? That one's legendary. He claimed it's about focus and inner peace, which is exactly what people say right before they're decapitated by their own hobbies. Crowds watched in stunned silence as the roaring blade hovered inches from his face. When he finally set it down, still intact, the audience erupted. Ashrita just smiled and said, "Next time, I'll make it 15 minutes." Humanity collectively replied, "Please don't." His record stands as the ultimate balance between genius, madness, and a very questionable idea of self-care. 27. The man who lived in an airport for 18 years. Mehran Karimi Nasseri, an Iranian refugee, became the real-life inspiration for the terminal. In 1988, a paperwork nightmare stranded him at Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris, and he ended up living there for 18 years. He slept on benches, bathed in airport restrooms, and read newspapers left by travelers. The staff grew fond of him. Passengers took selfies decades before selfies were a thing. When lawyers offered to fix his documents, he refused, saying he was already home. He became a fixture, the man who belonged nowhere, yet everywhere. Eventually, Hollywood turned his life into a movie, but he stayed in the terminal long after the credits rolled. His story isn't just bizarre, it's poetic. It's proof that bureaucracy can trap you forever, and that sometimes the only place you truly belong is Gate 34B. And there you have it, proof that humanity's greatest achievements often come with a side of madness. From airplane diets to record-breaking hot dogs, we've truly seen the limits of logic stretch, snap, and then get duct-taped back together. Which one deserves a standing ovation or a lifetime ban from common sense? You decide. Drop your pick for the dumbest world record ever in the comments. And remember, if it sounds impossible, someone's probably already tried it twice.